Good afternoon, Battle Room 7. I am Specialist Kovalesky, and today I'll be giving a brief on 071 TAC-COM TAC 0815, Practice Noise, Light, and Litter Discipline. The purpose of this brief is to be able to practice noise, light, and litter discipline. Task. Foreign Disclosure 1 is reviewed by a FDO, or Fort Benning. It iterates that foreign military units may be able to conduct this training in an unclassified scenario. Task. By the end of this block of instruction, you will be able to conduct noise, light, and litter discipline. Conditions. You are a member of a dismounted element have been tasked with complying with noise, light, and litter discipline. Enemy elements are in your area of operations, AO. Some iterations of this task are conducted in MOP level 4. So the next thing I would like to do is present my draw. So we're conducting this indoors. So the first thing I would like to mention is there are trip hazards, such as random boxes used for training purposes. There's slick floors, there's a risk of dehydration, there's low ceilings if for some reason we need to, jump or something of the sort. In case of tornadoes, I will go and barricade myself in that office there, and that should mitigate the issue. In case of active shooter, I'll also take cover in said office and barricade the door and practice noise discipline. In case of a fire, I will egress stage left to that door there, and at that point I will call the proper fire department to go and mitigate the issue. This facility is also a reuse, recycle, and repurpose facility. Please save your environment and practice those measures. It will also tie into today's lesson. So today we'll be practicing noise, light, and litter discipline. I will give some quick demonstrations on how to practice these measures. So what I just did there was I demonstrated some of the tenets of noise, light, and litter discipline. So the first thing that I had done was I was practicing mitigation of foot traffic. In these cases, you should also mitigate the use of vehicular traffic to be able to be quiet. Metal parts, slings, and other devices, such as surfaces that have glares, or in this case, glass or vehicles, you should naturally go and conceal them to risk of being identified. The next measure I had done was that I had set my radio to low, notionally, and then the next I had also performed hand and arm signals, a quick demonstration on that. One of the other measures under light discipline was I demonstrated not to smoke using a pen. You should conceal your flashlights, and in cases, your flashlights, if to be used, you should utilize red because the wavelengths of it are harder for the human eye to pick up from distance. In the case of white lights, as demonstrated, you can see that from quite a distance away, and that will ruin your position. In these cases, a light such as this, or your elbow flashlight, those are up to standard. Again, I chose to cover glaring surfaces there because I'm sure that was actually quite a distraction. And for two, that could give away your position. So such glaring surfaces are vehicular glass, glass on a watch, hence why you want to try and cover that up with the electrical tape if you can. Some other surfaces that can also be glaring is if your dog tags go and pop out. This ties back into the previous noise lesson that you want to try and secure these to the best of your ability so you can mitigate both noise and, well, you can mitigate, as I was, sound and light should they go and pop out of your uniform. And you should also try to naturally camouflage your position utilizing what's in your environment. You know, you can either use cover and concealment to your best advantages here. So the last tenet of that is litter, which I had utilized that box there. I had established a proper litter collection point. The key to that is when you go and make a mess, you want to be able to consolidate it. That way, when you go and do that, when you go to move out, it's so much easier to go and be able to pack it up and be able to roll out of your patrol base. You have to make sure that your area is sanitized prior to movement, and once you go and do that, then you can go and pack up once the area has been thoroughly inspected. So at this time, you will be evaluated to task conditions and standards, and at this time, I will let my soldiers practice properly. My demonstrators today will be Specialist Shipper, PFC Law, and Private Jones. These are my squad members, and they will each be conducting these classes. Now the important thing is that being I've given them the proper practice, well, the proper procedures as I was at this point, was to allow them to practice. So I will give them 5 minutes, and I will give them active feedback as they go and do their examples. Good job, Specialist Shipper. You're doing a great job. As a matter of fact, I noticed that you went and established a collective litter point. Now I suggest that you go and move it to something that's more concealed That way, if the enemy were to get eyes on, that it would be harder to actually uh, uh, detect. Specialist Lob, as I was, PFC Lob, I see that you have successfully concealed what appears to be a fine painting that actually goes to the standards of both light discipline as you covered up a glaring surface. Private Jones, during this lesson, you should not smoke. During evaluation, that would cause a no-go. So before we go and roll into these tasks, I would just like to reiterate that you currently have safety equipment on standby, notionally, but in a real-life scenario for this exercise, if something happens to my demonstrators here or myself, that the proper that 911 will be called at the earliest convenience. So at this time, I will restate the task, conditions, and standards for my students. Task. By the end of this block of instruction, you'll be able to practice proper noise, light, and litter discipline. Conditions. You are a member of a dismounted element, Reaper Squad, and have been tasked with complying to noise, light, and litter discipline. There are enemy elements in the AO, so some iterations of this task should be conducted in MOP Level 4. Today, we will not be conducting that in MOP Level 4. There are currently no special conditions. Standard. Prevent the enemy from locating your element by exercising noise, light, and litter discipline at all times. At this point, I will read off the performance measures. First performance measure, noise discipline. A soldier must practice both vehicular and foot movement discipline, i.e., you must avoid trying to move around, stirring up brush, or starting vehicles when you are not supposed to. Metal parts, slings, and other noises that make clinkety noises, those need to be secured using the electrical tape or by any means that you deem necessary that secures the object, i.e. also ID tags. Dog tags are a big sticking point on this. You must minimize the amount you talk. This one can be a little bit hard, but it'll make sense a little bit later. The enemy can easily detect you if you're being loud or if you're not whispering, if visibility is low and you cannot see hand and arm signals. Another performance measure is that you need to set your radio to low. You also need to turn the squelch feature off, because if the enemy gets close and for some reason your radio squelches, it's going to be loud and they will detect you. Hand and arm signals. At this point, you need to adhere to the unit's SOP, and you need to utilize hand and arm signals when the weather and visibility permits or when not in contact. Light discipline. For this exercise, you will not smoke. You will also conceal flashlights. This is a no-go. You will utilize camouflage for flashlights. You will also cover glaring surfaces, as I had demonstrated. You will also utilize whatever natural camouflage, a little hard in this scenario, but you will utilize what camouflage your terrain goes and affords you. Litter. You will establish a litter collection point at some point in your patrol base, your notional patrol base. Should usually be at the center or off to a point where it's not easily accessible or viewable by the enemy. You need to make sure that your litter point and your patrol base is sanitized prior to movement. And you need to take all litter with you. Again, recycle, reuse, and repurpose. Save your environment. So at this point, do I have any questions from my students? Specialist Schiffer. Specialist Kovalesky, I actually have a question for you. When it comes to covering watches, what is the best material to use? Glad you asked, Specialist Schiffer. Black electrical tape, green electrical tape, or whatever tape that you can use that'll mask the surface will be plenty sufficient for this exercise. Any further questions? PFC Law? Private Jones? Good. Alrighty. So the standards I just listed, they're either on a go or no-go standard. And at this point, we will determine whether my soldiers are up to snuff by the TPU rating. So at this point, I will have my soldiers go and sign in. I'll have them put their names on their roster. Here you go, Special Shipper. PFC Law. Private Jones, may I get you to put your name on the papers here? Alrighty, at this time, I will have all of you turn around and I will call Specialist Schiffer first for evaluation. Specialist Schiffer, please come to the front. Alrighty. Practice noise discipline, Specialist Schiffer. Demonstrate the tenets of light discipline. Demonstrate litter control. Specialist Schiffer, you have been evaluated. Please return to the end of the line. PFC Log, please come to the front for evaluation. Please demonstrate noise discipline. Good job on putting your radio down low. Practice light discipline. Utilizing the red light is correct. And good job on covering it. Practice and demonstrate litter collection. Now I get you to sign the roster here. Private Jones, please come to the front for assessment. Private Jones, please conduct noise discipline. Private Jones, you have failed to secure the radio's frequency and will put it on a lower setting. You have moved around way too much. You have not practiced noise discipline, as I was at the station. Next, we will conduct light discipline. Private Jones, you are a no-go at the station. You are supposed to cover and utilize red lights. Private Jones, please practice and demonstrate litter control. At this point, I still see trash on the ground. Private Jones, you are a no-go at the station. At this point, 66% of my squad are trained T, 33% are trained U. At this point, I will conduct and brief, retrain, and reevaluation. For those who have gotten a no-go at this station, there will be a retraining in the same uniform as we are now on the 20th of May at 0800. As I said, same uniform. We will be conducting noise, light, and litter discipline in standard to 071 TAC-COM, TAC 0815. I will prepare another deliberate risk assessment, but it should be about the same. Same plans should be in place. At this point, I would like to show my assessment sheet to leadership. At this point, we will conduct an after-action report on today's training. So, I'll ask, what was supposed to happen? You were supposed to conduct noise, light, and litter discipline 071 TAC-COM, TAC 0815 in accordance with STP 21 TAC 1 TAC SMCT for purposes of evaluation. What actually happened? What went right? What went wrong? Improvements for the training program. At this point, I will review my draw and make notes in the final blocks to annotate what went on with our AAR and to make improvements to the program. So as my students had demonstrated, they have felt that we needed more supplies for our program, and that that's definitely an improvement that we need to make. So for the next iteration, I'll make sure to put in the proper request to our supply chain to be able to have a better training exercise. At this point, I will have my soldiers conduct a police call, and I will help them by inspecting and assisting as necessary. At this point, training is concluded, everyone is dismissed, and at this point, we will close the training site. I will open the floor to any questions on the program as it pertains to noise, light, and litter discipline. Thank you for your time. Again,